What's up guys, AGGraph Plays here. Welcome back to another video, and on today's video we are going to be continuing the series of reading my friend Master Slayer's story, The Tale of the Red Crystal. We are on part 4 of the Crystal Arc, and we are going to be reading part 1, Mysterious Crystal, for chapter 1. So let's get started guys and start reading. Part 1, The Mysterious Crystal. In Chester, South Carolina, 22 years ago, 2023, the story begins on a quiet afternoon where Richard, at 18 years old, is lost in his world of creativity. His room is filled with the soft hum of music, the kind that vibrates through his soul. Heavy metal beats and sharp guitar riffs, filling the space with his AirPods firmly in place. Richard sits at his desk, his eyes focused intently on the paper before him. The room is scattered with crumpled pages, remains of countless failed attempts at perfecting his art, but today is different. Today the character he's sketching feels real, alive, with possibility. The character born from his imagination has been a constant companion in his sketches for as long as he can remember. Richard draws him over and over again, refining the details, testing new techniques, pushing him to capture the depth and emotion he envisions. Every line is carefully crafted, every shadow added with precision. His hand moves with the rhythm, almost as if the character is guiding him, urging him to get it just right. But even in his focused state, the world outside his mind isn't far away. As his pencil moves swiftly across the page, his concentration is broken by a knock at the door. Richard exhales sharply, pulling the AirPods from his ears, the music fading away into silence. He glances up, his eyes momentarily disoriented by the shift from his creative world to reality. The door creaks openly, and there stands his grandma, her smile warm as always. Her presence is a comforting reminder of the stability in his life, of the love and encouragement she has always given him. Richard pauses for a moment, then grins, his expression lighting up with genuine affection. "Hey mama, what are we having for dinner?" Richard asks, his voice carrying the familiar warmth of a well-worn routine. His grandma's voice calls back from the kitchen, a soft smile in her tone. "We're having pork chops and mashed potatoes. Come here and get some." Richard grins, eager to dig into his favorite meal. He heads to the kitchen, where the savory smell of cooking food fills the air. He grabs a plate, carefully dishing out portions for himself and his mom, making sure to load it up just the way they like it. They all sit down at a small dining table, the quiet chatter of family filling the room as they begin to eat. Between bites, Richard's mom looks up from her plate, her expression thoughtful. "How's school going? Are your grades improving?" she asks, genuinely interested, but trying not to sound too concerned. Richard shrugs a bit, not wanting to get into it. "Yeah, I'm doing alright, just trying to keep up. I've got to finish all 8 units so I can pass. I'm halfway there." His mom nods, her gaze softening. "That's good. So what do you plan to do after school since you're almost done?" Richard hesitates, the weight of his future hanging in the air for a moment. He wasn't sure how to explain it all, how much he wanted, how much of a dream it felt. Finally he answered, his voice but with a certain conviction. "I want to be a story writer and do art." He looks at her, searching for any sign of doubt, but his mom just smiles. She reaches over, patting his hand with a gentle, encouraging squeeze. "You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. It won't be easy, but good things never are." Hold on. Pause for a minute. My voice is kind of hurting a little bit. I'm gonna get myself a cup of water or something. Okay, I am back. And also, before I continue reading, I just want to say, let me know if you guys are liking the series so far. Comment down below if you guys are liking what I'm reading so far. But yeah, shout out to my friend Master Slayer, by the way. Go support him, his story, everything. Give him a lot of support and everything. I will leave I will promote his story in like the description below or something. But yeah, I'm gonna try to make this video a little longer than I do the most of the reading part, so I can get finished with chapter 1 and everything. But yeah, let's continue. She reaches over, patting his hand. Oh no, I already read that part. But good things never are. Okay, that was the part I was on. Richard feels a surge of warmth from her, words a little more confident in his dream. He grins back at her, a hint of pride in his smile. After dinner, he hugs his grandma, thanking her for the meal with a sincere smile before heading back to his room. The door closes softly behind him as he settles into his chair. The familiar clutter of his room surrounding him. He pulls out his schoolwork, but his mind drifts towards the story he'd been developing in his free time. He thinks back to the drawing he'd been working on earlier, the character, the world of possibilities. As his pencil hovers above the paper, he lets his imagination run wild, jotting down ideas for his project, superheroes, adventure, magic. It all comes together after a few minutes. He finally scribbles a title at the top of the page, Protection Earth. He leans back, satisfied. It wasn't much yet, but it was a start. Later that night, as Richard drifts off to sleep, the house grows quiet. The moonlight spills through the window, casting shadows across the floor, but outside in the darkened backyard, something stirs. A shadowy figure moves in stillness, a presence that slithers unnoticed through the night. It spreads like ink in the water, silent and eerie, undisturbed by the peaceful world inside. There's something ominous about it, a feeling that lingers even as it vanishes into the darkness. The night holds his breath. Morning, Sunday. Richard wakes up the next morning to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through his window. He stretches, yawns, and slides out of bed. Still half dazed from the remnants of sleep, he heads down the hallway to the kitchen. The familiar sound of the TV is reaching his ears before he even gets there. His grandma is sitting comfortably in her chair, eyes glued to an old black and white movie on the screen. "You really like this movie, huh?" Richard teases as he walks in. His grin playful. His grandma doesn't take her eyes off the screen, his smile tugging at the corners of her. "Yeah, wanna watch with me?" Richard shrugs casually, pulling a chair out from the table. "Sure, I don't mind." He grabs a bowl and fills it with cereal, sitting down to eat as he glances at the movie. It's one of those old classics, something he could never quite get into, but the comfort it brought her made him smile. They sit in companionable silence for a while, the movie playing in the background. As Richard finishes his breakfast, after a few minutes, he stands up, stretching his arms. I'm gonna head back to my room, work on the story some more. Got a lot to figure out." His grandma hums in acknowledgement, never taking her eyes off the screen. "Alright, don't overwork yourself. Come take a break later." "Will do, Mama," Richard says with a grin before heading upstairs. Back in his room, Richard gets to work, pulling out his notebook and opening his laptop. The ideas for his story keep flowing, his fingers moving quickly as he jots down character arcs and plot points. Hours slip by without him even noticing, the world outside becoming a blur. As he dives deeper into his project, he's lost in the details of his story, completely absorbed in the world he's creating. The story he was creating was based on a character he came up with before the story itself, Master Slayer. In this story, Master Slayer wouldn't just fight villains, but also tackle global crises like disease and starvation, and preventing Earth from becoming a lifeless planet. He would step up, doing everything he could to be the one who saves it. Eventually, though, Richard's mind starts to wander. His fingers slow down as he stretches in his chair, realizing that he's been at it for a while. He decides it's time for a break. Glancing at the clock, he figures it's about to hit the gym. He heads back downstairs, announcing to his mom and grandma, "I'm gonna head to the gym for a bit." His mom looks up from her book, giving him a quick nod. "Okay, be safe and don't overdo it." "Got it," he replies, grabbing his bag by the door. As he steps outside, ready to start his workout, something catches his eye in the backyard. A strange, bright light pulses for a moment, an almost unnatural glow shimmering in the air. It's hard to make out but the light seemed out of place. Richard stands there for a moment, squinting at it. His curiosity tugs at him, but then he shakes his head. Probably nothing, he mutters, brushing it off. He has more important things to focus on today. With a deep breath, Richard heads out, his mind already back on the gym. The light in the backyard fades into the background unnoticed as the rest of the day continues on. Night. At the gym, Richard goes through his usual routine, lifting weights and doing push-ups. As night falls, he takes a break, sipping water while listening to music. His phone rings. It's his mom. "Hey, can you come quickly?" she asks, her voice tinged with worry. Richard is immediately concerned. "What's going on?" "It's your grandma," she says, and Richard feels a cold dread settle over him. He rushes to his car and drives home as fast as he can. When he arrives, an ambulance is already in the driveway. He parks hastily and runs into the house, where he sees his mom standing by his grandma, who is barely moving and struggling to breathe. He tries desperately to talk to her, but she's unresponsive. She's gone. The words didn't make sense. Richard stood frozen in the doorway, his mom's voice a distant hum. As the paramedics moved around him, his grandma, the woman who had raised him, as the paramedics take his grandma away, Richard begins to come to terms with her sudden death. He tells his mom he's going to his room to think and sits on his bed staring at the ceiling, emotionless and lost. "She can't die. She was just fine earlier," he murmurs to himself. In a daze, Richard texts his friends about his grandma's passing, his hand shaking. "She was fine this evening. I don't know what happened," he types to Anthony, his longtime friend. Anthony replies, "Oh my god, let's go." My character introduction. Yes, sir. Slayer, if you're watching this video, thank you for adding me in here. And I can't wait to get to know my character in your story. Even though I already know it's me, but yeah. Anthony replies with shock and sympathy. "I'm so sorry, man. She was a great person." "What do you mean she was fine yesterday? Did the medics say she died of old age?" "No," Richard responds. "That's the strange part. They didn't tell us that." Anthony suggests talking to his mom, and Richard agrees. He leaves his room and finds his mom. "How did she die?" he asks, his voice trembling. His mom shakes her head, still in belief. "I don't know. She was fine earlier, and then she suddenly just collapsed, unconscious." Richard echoes, trying to make sense of it. "Yeah," his mom says. "I don't understand how she died like that." "Me neither, but now I lost a part of myself." Richard looked down. "What do you mean?" his mom asked. "It's just that my grandma was there for me every day when I come home. She would be happy to see me, and every now and then she would help me with anything that I had trouble. And ever since she died, I feel lost, like it was all just a memory, but it's not a memory, it's real, and I lost someone who was dear to me ever since I was born. Losing someone is hard, especially when her son died as well. I watched my uncle die right in front of me, and that hurt my grandma ever since. She started getting dementia, but she stayed strong. But whatever this was, it was not normal," he said as he looked down as he cried. He went to his room. What can't I have? Is this what my life is? Just a lone person in the dark waiting to be heard? Is this what life truly wants me to feel? Hurt? He started crying. Few minutes later, Richard checked his computer. There was so much to notice. He went on Facebook and heard the news of his grandma's passing. It still hurt him, but he also saw something. 3 weeks ago when I was going to work, my mom told me, but once I got home, she was suddenly gone. She was fine before I left. What happened? Tell what's going on, the post said as Richard looked at slowly, realizing something similar happened. Richard searched many more posts similar to posts like that, and he was shocked to see many determined to find out what happened. He started searching the internet for any suspicious activity in the area and discovers a story from 22 years ago about a man who hid a mysterious crystal outside a house. Ever since then, strange deaths have occurred around the neighborhood, leading to rumors of the crystal being cursed. Richard's heart races As he recalls the bright light he saw earlier, he clicks on a page that mentions Golovin, a scientist who had worked on the crystal for years. So this is a guy. This is the guy. This crystal might be what killed my grandma, or whatever killed her, because I need to find out. Richard whispers to himself, a cold realization dawning on him. As he pieces together the information, he starts to feel unnerved, exhausted, and overwhelmed. Richard finally goes to sleep. Next morning, Monday. Richard woke up the next morning, the weight of the previous night's events still heavy in his chest. The nightmares of fear, they lingered in his mind, unsettling him. As the light filtered through his window, he rubbed his eyes and sat up, trying to shake the unease that clung. He stumbled out of bed and went to get ready for school. As he adjusted his shirt in front of the mirror, something caught his eye through the window. Just beyond the glass, a figure stood in the yard, its eyes glowing, a fierce red piercing the morning gloom. Richard froze, his heart slamming against his ribcage. "What is that thing?" he muttered to himself, his voice shaky, an intense wave of anxiety sweeping over him. It wasn't human. There was something wrong, unnaturally wrong. With the way it stood there watching him, he couldn't breathe, he couldn't move. With a sharp breath, Richard snapped out of his stupor, his instincts kicking in without another second of hesitation. He grabbed his bag, dashed out of the house, and jumped into his car. He didn't care if he was late. He just needed to leave. The fear from the night before had suddenly returned stronger than ever. At school, he met up with Anthony and Caleb outside of the cafeteria. They greeted him casually, but it was clear something was off. Richard wasn't his usual self. During lunch, they sat together, and the usual banter fell flat, replaced by heavier silence. Richard picked up at his fear, the weight of the conversation that needed to happen pressing down on him. "I don't even know how to say this," Richard said quietly, looking between his two friends. "But my grandma, she passed away that night." The words felt hollow in his mouth, as if they didn't even belong to him. The grief was raw and fresh, still so much to fully grasp. Caleb's expression softened instantly. "Man, I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how hard that must be for you." Anthony, who had been quietly listening, nodded somberly. "Yeah, bro, I'm really sorry. Losing someone close to you is tough." Richard's throat tightened as he tried to push the grief down. "It's just hard to believe she was always there for me ever since I was a kid, and the way she died, it doesn't make sense. It wasn't natural. It doesn't feel real." Anthony shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes avoiding Richard's. "That's messed up. I get what you mean, though. My dad's been gone for a year. No one knows where he is, or if he's even still well alive." Richard looked at him, a bit surprised. "Do you still have him in your contacts?" He asked, his curiosity piqued. "Yeah, I've tried reaching out to him, but he never picks up. It's like he's not even there," Anthony replied, his voice quiet, tinged with frustration and sadness. Richard felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Something about Anthony's story felt all too similar. His mind raced as he considered the possibility of something bigger, something connected to his grandmother's death and possibly even to Anthony's father's disappearance. I think this might be connected," Richard said, lowering his voice, darting between his friends. "There's something about this crystal, whatever it is. I believe it has something to do with my grandma's death, and I need answers. I don't know how, but it feels like everything's leading back to this thing." Caleb's eyebrows shot up in shock. "A crystal? What are you talking about, Richard?" Richard leaned forward, speaking more urgently now. "I've been trying to piece things together. There's something strange about this town lately. Stuff that doesn't add up. And I'm not sure what's happening, but I think the crystal might be part of it. I don't know what it's capable of, but we need to figure out what's going on with it before something worse happens." Caleb exchanged a glance with Anthony, both looking uneasy but listening intently. "This town has been weird lately," Caleb said, rubbing his chin. "And I didn't even mention it. There have been reports of odd stuff happening, lights flickering, people acting strange. Things that just don't sit tight." Anthony nodded slowly. "Yeah, I've noticed that too. It's like something creeping up on all of us. Whatever's going on, it feels like we're just waiting for something to snap. Richard sat back, his mind whirling exactly, and whatever this crystal is tied to it. I don't know if we can stop whatever is coming from it, but we have to try. We can't just sit here and wait for things to get worse. Caleb met Richard's gaze, his expression hardening with resolve. You're right, whatever this is, we need to face it. We'll figure this out together. Anthony sighed a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but he nodded in agreement. Yeah, alright. Let's find out what the hell is going on. Richard felt a strange sense of relief, as if for the first time in a while. The weight of everything was shared. He wasn't alone in this, but as a bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, a nagging thought lingered at the back of his mind. The figure with the red eyes, a strange sense of dread that still clung to him. Something was coming, and they had to be ready. After school, the three friends meet outside, the weight of the day finally lifting from the shoulders. Man, what a day, Anthony says, stretching his arms above his head with a sigh. I swear, those classes felt like they'd never end. I'm exhausted. Richard chuckles and shakes his head. Yeah, you gotta stop stressing so much, if you want the stress to melt away, you just have to take a step back and breathe. Music helps me focus, find the right balance where you can hear the teacher but still zone out to the music. It's not all about cramming. Anthony raises an eyebrow. You're right, I guess music definitely helps me concentrate more. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Richard grins, tapping him lightly on the shoulder. Exactly, but don't push yourself too hard, man. Burnout is real. You don't want to end up crashing. I mean, take it from me, he says, pulling something out of his book bag. What's that? Anthony asks, a curious look on his face. Wow, this video is going to be long. Richard pulls out a piece of paper, unfolding it slowly, and shows them his report card. Anthony's eyes widen as he looks at it. Wait, hold up. You actually did better than me. How is that even possible? I can't even remember what I got. Richard chuckles, leaning against a nearby wall. I've been putting in the work, man. Hitting the books pretty hard lately. It's not just about the grades, though. It's about figuring out how to focus and actually understand stuff. It makes a difference when you care about what you're learning. Damn, man, that's impressive, Anthony says, shaking his head. Guess I need to step up my game. Richard shrugs with a smile, just trying to keep my head in the game, one step at a time, As the conversation winds down, they prepare to head off in separate directions. I'll keep you guys updated on any weird stuff that pops up. Richard calls after them, the usual quiet confidence in his voice. Catch you later, man, Anthony. Anthony waves as he walks off. Leaving Richard standing alone. Richard watches them go, then walks towards his car, his mind still lingering on the conversation. Once inside, he pulls out his phone, his thumb scrolling through photos until it stops on a picture of his family, his parents and his sister smiling in front. The photo catches him off guard, and for a moment, he stares at it, his chest tightening as the weight of his thoughts starts to settle in. His phone buzzes in his hand, snapping him out of his trance. He glances at the screen and sees his mom's name. His heart skips a beat. He answers with a shaky breath. Hello, I'm at the store. Need anything while I'm here? His mom asks, her voice as calm as always. Richard clears his throat. Yeah, can you grab me a Pepsi and some sour cream and onion chips? I'm running low on both. Got it. I'll be back soon. You can help me unload when I get home, she says, her tone gentle but with that familiar warmth. Alright, Richard replies, his voice softer now. He holds the phone to his ear, listening to the faint sounds of background noise before hanging up. The silence in the car feels heavier now. He looks back at the family photo one last time before he tucks his phone away, a strange mixture of comfort and emptiness lingering inside him. The front door creaked open, followed by the rustling of plastic bags. Richard peeked out of his room and saw his mom balancing groceries on each arm like she was defusing a bomb. He sighed, stood up, and jogged outside to grab the rest from the car. You got it, he asked, taking a few heavy bags from her. Yeah, just one more trip, and yes, she added with a smirk, I got your Pepsi and those weird chips you like. He raised an eyebrow. Sour cream and onion is not weird. It's a little weird, she chuckled. Hey, that's disrespectful, says the one who eats dill pickle flavor, Richard said, deadpan, carrying the bags into the kitchen. Inside the kitchen, lights flickered once before, coming fully on. Richard shook it off and started unpacking. He moved like a machine, milk in the fridge, bread in the bin, cereal in the pantry, like he'd done it 100 times because he had. From one of the bags, he pulled out a cold can of Pepsi and a green striped bag of chips. A small grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. Thought you would forget, his mom smiled while flipping through a worn cookbook. I pay attention, believe it or not. Also, we're having steak tonight. You earned it. Hell yeah, Richard said, popping the can open with a medium rare, right? Medium, she said firmly. He gave her a mock, offended look and... Okay, my voice is starting to get tired, but I can get through this. He gave her a mock, offended look and retreated to his room with a drink and chips in hand. Back in his room, the door clicked shut behind him, sealing him inside. His usual chaos sketches, scribbled outlines and notebooks that never stayed closed. His laptop hummed quietly on the corner of the desk, screen glowing with school tabs he'd been avoiding for days. He set the Pepsi down and homework stared back at him like a brick wall. Algebra equations, history timelines, a half-finished science report. He rubbed his eyes and cracked open a bag of chips, crunching slowly as he pulled up the first assignment. Outside, the sky was a washed-out gray, and the trees barely moved. The storm had passed, but the air still felt heavy, like the whole neighborhood was stuck in a freeze frame. He glanced toward the window. The clouds hadn't shifted in an hour. He didn't know why that bothered him, but it did. Then it started to rain. After finishing some assignments, he wiped his face, glancing at the clock, 11:47 p.m. That's when he saw a figure outside the window, standing perfectly still in the pouring rain. It wasn't a person. It didn't move, didn't blink. It just watched. Richard's stomach dropped. He stepped closer to the glass, heart suddenly hammering in his chest, but it was gone, vanished. He stood frozen for a second, then he stepped back. He started going back to his computer to write his story. The storm was in a full swing. Wind howled through the streets, rain hammered the windshield, thunder cracked like a war drum. It's nothing, Richard muttered. I'm tired, that's all. But deep down he knew he'd seen that thing before near his house, the night his grandma died. And it wasn't just a figure, it was a shadow. Something wrong, something that didn't belong in this world. He kicked off his shoes and locked every door. His mom was asleep. Thankfully, he didn't want to explain why he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He climbed into bed, wrapping himself in this blanket like it could protect him, but the storm kept him awake, and then it was there again, standing in the corner of his room, closer than before. No features, just darkness, shaped like a man, but wrong, twitching, flickering like static. Richard's breath caught in his throat. He squeezed his eyes shut. This isn't real. He opened them again. Still there. Nope, I'm done, he muttered, throwing the blanket off and stumbling to his feet. He grabbed a coat and slipped outside through the back door, not even bothering to turn on the light. Rain soaked him instantly. Wind slapped his face, but anything was better than staying inside with that thing. He ran through the backyard into the woods. The shadow followed, always a few feet behind, never rushing, never stopping, like it knew he couldn't escape. His foot caught on a root. He hit the ground hard, sliding down a muddy slope and landed in a shallow creek with a splash. Ugh, shit, he groaned, spitting water and dirt as he rolled onto his back, and then he saw it, something glowing beneath the water. He crawled toward it, brushing away mud and rocks to reveal a small metal container. Cracked open, inside was a red crystal, pulsing faintly like a dying heartbeat. What the hell? Richard whispered. He reached for it. The second his fingers touched the crystal, a jolt of energy surged through his body like lightning, but colder, sharper, and then the shadow struck. It lunged into him, not onto him, into him, pouring through his mouth, his eyes, his skin. He screamed as his body locked up, the crystal blinding him with red light. He levitated off the ground. What the hell is going on? He shouted, limbs flailing as wind whipped around him. Why am I flying? His voice cracked with panic as the crystal's energy surged again, wrapping around him like armor made of pure force. The world spun, trees blurred beneath him, and then it launched him through branches, over treetops. He crashed into a trunk with the bone rattling, cracks splintering it in half, but the crystal cushioned the blow, catching him before he hit the ground. He groaned, rolling onto his side, soaked and gasping. "What is this crystal doing to me?" The glow faded slightly, but the hum remained buzzing beneath the skin. Still shaking, Richard stumbled back through the woods, following the faint light of the porch. He reached the back door and slipped inside, dripping and shivering. His hands trembled as he peeled off his chest. Then he saw it, his skin glowing faintly red. "No, no, no," he muttered. "This isn't real." He reached for the doorknob in his room. It shattered in his hand. Metal clanged to the floor. Richard stared at his palm, wide-eyed. "What the f—" A voice behind him cut through the silence. "Silence, Richard." He spun around. His mom stood in the hallway, groggy concern etched across her face. What was that crash? And what the hell happened outside? Something hit the house. It was just the wind, he stammered. "Some branches fell. I'll clean it up in the morning." Her eyes narrowed. She looked him up and down, mud smeared clothes, trembling hands, glowing skin barely hidden under his hands. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah," he lied, forcing a twitch of smile. "Just tired. I'm fine." She hesitated, then sighed. "All right, but you'll explain that mess tomorrow." She walked away, closing her door behind her. Richard stood in silence for a moment before slowly turning to his room. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. The hum of the crystal was still there. So was the feeling, like something had entered him, something alive, something watching the storm, The storm raged on outside, and in his gut he knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Wow, holy crap. I got done with all of chapter 1. Let's freaking go, man. And now I'm gonna be on part 2 of chapter 2, I think. But yeah, oh my god. That took a pretty long time to make, or to finish. And this video is really long, by the way, but yeah. Okay, Slayer, my thoughts on this, I must say, it's a 10 out of 10. I liked it, and I feel bad for like Slayer losing his grandma in the story. It felt very sad and stuff like that. My thoughts, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. And yeah, I'm gonna get this video uploaded. My voice really hurts, but I don't care, because I just want to do this story as a friend, because that's what friends do. And yeah, I'm gonna upload this video, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.